when you're selling something off the plan, you're essentially, the way I see it is that as the sales agent, you're making commitment to that purchaser that you're going to see them throughout the whole process. And I always say to my clients, when this is built, I will be in that property with you doing the pre-settlement inspection, and you'll have a smile on your face because it will be exactly how I've described here.
You are listening to the Property Developer Podcast, your home for tips, ideas and inspiration to help take your developing to the next level. Now here's your host, Justin Getty.
Hello and welcome to episode 62 of the show. Thanks for joining me. How are you doing? How are your projects progressing? All on track? I'm well. Been a little while between episodes again, so it's great to be back with you. At the time of recording this, it's approaching the end of the year, so I've been winding down and reflecting on the year that's been. And from a property development perspective, it's been pretty challenging for me. But I'm hopeful that next year we'll see more activity and action. On the project front, we finally received a notice of decision from council on our project, and they intend to grant us a permit, providing nobody objects to the planning tribunal. So I've got my fingers crossed for the next few weeks until I get that stamped letter. It's been another 2-year battle to get to this point, so I'm looking forward to moving to the next stage of the project. On our other project, we have a couple of further sales, although we did have one that fell over during the cooling off period, which was a bit frustrating. But that's how it goes sometimes. My main challenge on that project is getting construction started so we can move things along and get it closer to being wrapped up. And speaking of planning, my wife has had the pleasure of experiencing the planning system over the past few months as she looks to relocate her small business to another space. And what a journey she's been on. She was initially advised by council planners that she could apply through the VicSmart system, which supposedly fast-tracks applications in 10 business days and is much cheaper. So she did that and paid her $900, only to then be told by council that she actually needed to go through a full planning application, which meant paying $3,000 and going through a public notice process and all the associated costs with going down that path. And this would likely take 2 to 3 months, which started pushing up against her lease ending at her original office. Of course, she faced the challenge of dealing with vague planning officers who are difficult to get straight answers from, and delays while paperwork is processed. She couldn't believe that simply moving into a new space would trigger the need for a planning permit. Anyway, she went to public notice, which lasted 28 days, and had to pay for the privilege of notifying all the neighbouring properties. Toward the end of the notice period, she only had one objection, but this meant that council could only issue a notice of decision, which would mean another 28-day delay while council waited to see if anyone objected to the planning tribunal. So this adds another 5 to 6 week delay to the application, unless we could get the objector to withdraw their application or their objection. So we duly got in touch with the objector and successfully managed to get them to withdraw their objection. My wife thought this would mean a fast tracking of her permit being issued. But when she contacted the planning officer in charge, he said he had so many other files to work on before getting to hers. So I suggested she contacted the Director of Planning at the council and explain her situation and see if there was anything that could be done to help, as it had been many months now since my wife had first contacted council and had received differing advice along the way. The director turned out to be quite helpful and said he would look into it. And then, funnily enough, the next day my wife gets a call from the planning officer who's been handling her application, saying he'd reviewed her file, and it turns out that due to my wife's business being classified as medical and being smaller than 250 square metres, then the business didn't actually require a permit at all. They were very sorry for the delay and would duly refund her application fees. My wife was gobsmacked, but very relieved that the whole debacle is over. So much for the planning department being the so-called experts on the planning scheme in the area, hey? Just another case of people having their time, money and energy wasted through a planning process. And I said, welcome to my life. Okay, don't forget, if you are interested in learning how to develop property, then email me about the property developing mentoring program that is available to help you get started. There's nothing like a helping hand to show you the right way when you're starting out. So email Justin at propertydeveloperpodcast.com and I'll send you some further information. My guest today is a project salesperson from the same group as previous guest John Meagher. So if you missed episode 60 where we talked about selling and marketing projects, make sure you go back and listen to that, because there is lots of gold that you will love. Campbell Royston works at 360 Property Group, helping to sell some of Melbourne's best projects. And we discuss what the secrets are to successfully selling property off the plan. We talk about the power of tailoring your sales campaign and ensuring you are targeting the right buyers, as well as a range of other issues about selling property. I'm sure you will enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Keep an ear out for the question Campbell frequently asks to clarify people's intention. I started off by asking Campbell what food he would eat until he was sick.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm definitely more a savoury person. Probably some form of Italian food. Can always go a big bowl of pasta. Typically do eat too much as well of the pasta when it's in front of me. So maybe just a typical spaghetti bolognese or something like that.
Ah, just a simple bolognese?
Yeah, I think there's nothing better.
Yeah, do you make your own?
I do. I feel like everyone with bolognese has their own version, and everyone thinks that their own version is the best. So I subscribe to that as well. I think mine's pretty good, but yeah, I love it.
You got a secret ingredient you're prepared to share with us? Because I've also got a spaghetti sauce recipe that I think is pretty damn good.
Yeah, look, I won't give away my special ingredient, but I can tell you my father's version, because he loves cooking it as well. His is a lot of lean parents Worcestershire sauce.
Oh yeah.
So which makes it quite salty and quite rich. So
and I'm assuming you've taken and built upon that, or have you dialed it back a bit?
I think I've dialed it back a bit. Yeah, mine's more, I don't know, lots of fresh basil, olives, a bit of bacon in there, as well as the veal, the beef mince.
Oh, yeah. And a couple of other things
now I'm getting hungry. Now I'm getting hungry for dinner.
Well, speaking of secret sauce, we're here today to talk about project marketing.
Yes.
And hopefully you can share or reveal some of the secret sauces that you use to get projects solved.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, can you just give us a bit of a background about yourself, how you got into property marketing and property in general?
Sure. So I guess I've always had a bit of a weird fascination with property. When I was 12 years old, I would attend open homes by myself around the area that I lived, and would collect agency brochures as I walked past. I could look at all the houses. Don't quite know why I did that, but it's just something that always interested me. And then towards the end of my schooling, thought that could be a good career path for me. At that stage, my mum was in property as well. So I went and studied a Bachelor of Property and Real Estate at uni. And then I decided, once I'd done that I didn't want to be in property anymore and thought maybe I want to do interior design. So...
and why was that? How come you...
So...
What turned you off?
I think the studying part of it turned me off. So... it took away... What I love about property is the relationships with people. So doing a property degree essentially took away, what I do every day, and dealing with people, took that out of it and made it a lot more methodical. So then I really wanted something a little bit more creative or a bit more out there. So that's sort of led me into interior design, which I've always had great appreciation for architecture and design as well. So did that at RMIT, worked within the design field for probably 2 years after I'd graduated, and then realised that there's not a huge amount of money in interior design unless you're at the very top and you've been working for a very long time. So I decided maybe I needed to look back at property as another option. decided to do that, and haven't really looked back. So now I'm coming up probably on 6 years that I've been selling off the plan.
So what did you make the jump from interior design to selling established properties, or as a standard real estate agent, or project marketing?
I worked for a very small agency in Toorak, and their core business was property investment advisory. So essentially doing channel sales for projects. So I went straight into selling off the plan, which that appealed to me more so than traditional real estate, because obviously with off the plan, particularly with the projects that I represent, we're dealing with the best architects, the best interior designers, in Australia, if not in the world. When we've got some international architects on some projects we've got coming up next year. So I much preferred, dealing with this beautiful product rather than, Mr. and Mrs. Jones' house down the corner that is a bit tired, and they've got the cats running around the house and the furniture is not looking great. Much prefer working these beautifully styled, curated display suites and selling really beautiful buildings and product.
And you mentioned channels. Talk us through a little bit more about what that actually means, selling through channels.
So essentially, what I'm doing now is project sales and marketing, and I would refer to myself as a retail agent. So I'm engaged by our vendor, who's the developer, to sell out an entire building or entire project, whatever it may be. On some projects, I may choose to engage channel agents. So there are other agents that can come, and we'll give them access so that they can sell a couple of properties within that project. And typically the channel agents are working with a smaller group of clients, but they'll have a lot of repeat clients and a lot of relationship based clientele. And that was definitely when I started in 2014. The investment side of thing was still very strong. So I had clients that sold three investment properties too, over a period of time. So it's just, you don't, as a channel agent, you're not looking after an entire project, but you can typically gain access to a lot of projects out there on the market.
And then from there, where did you jump into?
So from there, I went and worked with another agency in South Melbourne. And then shortly after, I was approached by my mother, who I mentioned is in property, when she was expanding her company. So she asked me to come on board and continue to do channel sales, but then, and also to help her she's got a traditional arm to her business as well, so to do a little bit of traditional real estate, but then to set up and develop a property management arm to her business. So I agreed to do that, and was with her for probably about 3.5 years, and established her whole property management arm, had got staff working there, built up that rent roll, as well as completing my own sales. And then towards the end, we also had some boutique projects that we were marketing as well.
Yeah. What's that like, working with your mum?
Well, I don't work with her anymore.
Yeah, I know, but at the time, some robust family discussions were...
Look, it was actually, it was great. We get along very well, and we still do. I've got a lot of respect for her. She's been in the industry for, over 25 years and has had some great success. It just got to a point for me where all we would do is talk about work all the time. So I just decided I needed to take a step back, so I could get that familial relationship back with my mum, and stop boring my brother at family dinners with us just talking about work all the time. And that's when I made the move to 360, where I've been here now for, just over a year and a half. And I think, it's been a good move.
So it's been a pretty challenging 18 months in the off the plan selling market.
Yes.
In that time. What have you learnt along the way, or what sort of stands out when you cast your mind back over that first 18 months here?
Look, there's no doubt that it has been, it's probably been the worst market since I've been in this industry that we've had. I've been lucky enough that, working with John is very selective in the projects that we take on. So I've been very lucky to work on some really good projects during that time. So I've been able to continue to sell. It's just meant that I think as sales agents, we almost have had to wake up and actually start doing our jobs again and selling. Not that I don't think I was ever asleep, but I think that's when we saw a lot of agents exit the market and leave real estate entirely, because there was a lot of people out there that were more so, tour guides showing people around rather than actually trying to negotiate and facilitate a sale. So I think it's just given everyone a big poke up the backside and has got everyone working hard again.
Yeah, I think someone described it as being order takers.
Yes.
When the market was hot.
Yes.
That's basically what you were doing, just
Exactly.
writing down, filling out the contracts.
Filling out contracts, yeah. Whereas now every single deal, certainly that I do and that I transact, there's a lot of work that goes on in the background to make that happen.
Yeah, so what is that work that you've got to do in the background to get a deal across the line now?
It depends on the product that you're selling. So it depends on the buyer demo. So, whether if they're first time buyers, there's you as the agent want to allocate a lot more time to education with the client, and introducing them to mortgage brokers or introducing them to solicitors so that they can actually understand the whole process, how it works, how much they can borrow, because a lot of the time they don't necessarily even know what they can borrow when they're already looking at property. They get a little bit swept up in it. With downsizers who are typically my client demo for the stock that I sell, because I'm typically selling products that have $1 to $3 million. There's a lot of time spent with customization of floor plans. That's become really important. I'd say even over the past 2 years, the purchasers have become a lot more savvy in terms of their expectations, and to be able to create not only a floor plan but aesthetically with fixtures and finishes something that's going to suit the client down to the T, is obviously another huge benefit of off the plan that you're not going to get in traditional real estate. But it definitely does add up a lot more hours of work to move them from that process of them submitting an inquiry to getting it through to actually signing a contract.
So can you give me an example of the customisation, something that people will be asking for now that maybe they didn't ask for 2 years ago?
So we've had a lot of clients seeking larger apartments. So that doesn't necessarily mean that people are wanting 3 bedrooms. We've had a lot of people a lot of downsizers wanting really large 2 bedrooms. So in some projects where that design wasn't considered initially, we're able to customise floor plans, take a 3 bedroom, get rid of one of the bedrooms, make a larger living space. So we're seeing 2 bedrooms sort of 100 to 130 square metres of living sell really well to that market. Or it may be that, like, we've got a project in Elsternwick recently where we had one client purchase the entire level of apartments, which was 3 really large apartments to begin with, and completely customise their own, I guess it would be a penthouse now, with
or a
their
nightclub.
Yeah, with their master suite, being about 80 or 90 square metres, just the master suite. So I think the benefits of, apartment or townhouse living with no maintenance, sort of lock up and leave, is very attractive, obviously, to people in their, early 50s and older. And that's something that we can achieve for them, especially when they're not wanting to compromise on space or design or comfort. We can sort of try and marry the two together to get them something that they're happy with.
And so are they inquiring with a view to then customising a floor plan?
No. So that's a journey that we would take them on. So there's a bit of hand-holding involved in that. But also it's just about, as salespeople, thinking outside of the box. And it's like, okay, none of these products suit this client. Can we make something suit them? So you've just got to be a little bit more on it and constantly thinking of what you can do to actually get that sale across the line.
And so I'm presuming the lead time is a lot longer now in terms of from inquiry to sealing the deal.
Typically, people who purchase off the plan, from initial inquiry, doesn't necessarily mean it's on your project, maybe on another project, to actually securing something is about 6 months now. So that statistic is from Domain, and also they found that 80% of people that are looking at off the plan are also directly comparing it to established property. So gone are the days when, if someone was looking at off the plan, they were only looking at like-for-like offerings. Now people are much more willing to look at everything and get a much better understanding of everything that's available in the market, and then make a more informed decision.
And what do you reckon's tipping them into an off-the-plan sale?
So again, I think it's different for different buyer types. For downsizers, timing is definitely a benefit, that they can go through this whole process and secure something now, and then they've got time to actually think about what they're going to do with their house, that they're going to have to clean out the 4-bedroom house to move into an apartment. They're not rushed. So that 2-year lead time can actually be a real selling tool for some people. Obviously stamp duty as well, especially when we're looking at property over $1 million. The stamp duty saving that an owner-occupier can still enjoy is quite significant. And then for first home buyers, with off the plan, they're still eligible for a first home owners grant, and then they can also secure something at a much higher purchase price and still benefit from $0 stamp duty, because the dutiable value will still be under that threshold, even if the purchase price is $1 million.
Yeah, that is one of the good benefits of off the plan.
And they're getting something brand new as well. They know that they're not inheriting any problems. I had a client purchase a Victorian terrace recently in Richmond, and they've just found out that they have to put a whole new roof, which is going to cost them $20,000-$30,000 to do. So that you're not going to have any surprises down the track.
Well, you hope not. There have been a few issues with some apartment developments, particularly in Sydney, but is that something that's weighing on people's minds when they're coming and talking to you?
Yeah, look, definitely with the way that it's been portrayed in the media. The reality is that Victoria has very different building regulations to New South Wales. So again, that's just part of the education process. Further with the hot topic of cladding, that's actually to our benefit now, because before a building can receive its certificate of occupancy, it's now independently inspected by a government surveyor to ensure that there's no flammable cladding used. So that works in our benefit now. So we can say, don't look at something that's 5 years old because you don't know what you're buying. But if you buy something off the plan or that hasn't been completed yet, you know that you'll have no issues.
Yeah, I think that'll wash through the market fairly quickly and hopefully bring some confidence back to people. I'd like to talk to you about how you go about planning a campaign. I know when I spoke to John, he was talking about segmenting to succeed.
Yes.
Can you take us through...
It's a favourite phrase.
Yeah, can you take us through your thoughts when you're sitting down and working on a campaign, and the absolute things you must do, things you avoid, or just talk us through that?
Look, whenever we're looking at launching a project, if we can, we like to be involved very early on, typically in the design phase of the project, so we can advise the clients in which way to move from that side of things. Because realistically, it's easier sort of to reverse engineer a product which will inform the marketing, rather than designing a product and then thinking, how are we going to sell this? So if we can look at the location and look at what type of figures we're trying to achieve on a project, we can then discover who our buyer is to achieve those figures, and then we can look at what product that buyer is actually desiring at the moment, and then look at the design rather than go the traditional route of designing a product and trying to sell it. So if we have the luxury of being able to do that, the marketing campaign can be a lot more straightforward, because we can actually target that client type or that client demo, to make them aware of the project that we're selling.
And if you've just got something that's been designed and
yes,
is ready to go,
it's just about making the product as attractive as it can be within the market. But again, you really need to know who you're trying to sell to, because ultimately you can spend huge amounts on advertising, and we see developers do this that we're not involved with. They're spending these huge amounts on marketing and not really having any success. Whereas sometimes you can look at a lower spend, but if it's actually targeted at the right people or at the right market, you're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck in terms of results.
Is that using Facebook and Insta? Are they the sort of, when you talk about direct advertising, are they more the channels that you would go to for that?
Look, again, it can be a variety of different avenues. So, we even find that direct mail can work very well. Still, definitely social media advertising has evolved greatly over the past couple of years, and for certain buyer types, that can be a very effective and cost-effective form of marketing and advertising a project.
So what are your have you got 3 or 4 go-tos, or is it a case-by-case basis, or what are the tactics that you love to use? Look,
everything that we do is tailored to our client at the time. So we're not we do obviously a huge volume of sales every year, but we can only achieve that because we are spending that extra time to tailor make a solution to each and every client. We're not like a traditional real estate agent who will say, for this type of property we do X, Y and Z and this is how much it's going to cost you. I consider that's almost a bit lazy in just putting somebody through a machine.
What do they call it? Spray and pray?
Exactly. So we would rather tailor make something for the product and for the client that's going to be cost effective and is going to make, you know, our life as a salesperson easier, because we're going to get qualified leads and we're not wasting our time, you know, calling the wrong type of people for that particular project.
Yeah. So when you mentioned direct mail, so where are you getting those details of these people from? Are they on a database or?
Yeah, so there's a variety of places. We're very lucky here that we do have a huge database of purchasers. Obviously, after, you know, considering this company's been around for 11 years now and the sheer number of properties that we've sold here, we do have a huge database there. And then there are also some, you know, other methods of marketing to those buyer types.
Yeah, you guys do some pretty good launches for projects. I think you've done some recently, haven't you? What are the kind of things you like to do at a launch?
Look, I think it's definitely a case-by-case basis. So, for instance, one of the launches that I headed up this year was the launch of the Moonee Valley Racecourse redevelopment, which I'm currently selling the first stage of. So that's a $2 billion multi-stage project. And the first stage are our premium townhouses. So because that's such an iconic and significant site for the area, we thought it was very important to have community engagement. So our launch was very much geared towards involving the community and educating them exactly what was happening there. And that's proven to be, you know, quite a successful project this year.
So is that a case of inviting a whole stack of people from a postcode along to a bit of an open day?
Yes, I mean, at that particular launch, we probably had about 300 people through on the day, which are huge numbers, especially for this type of market that we've had. And, you know, on the day we had a whole variety of, you know, activities for children. We had people out there so that they could make their own terrariums. We had, you know, good quality catering is always good, and always attracts people. And then really it's just about building up the anticipation of, you know, what it will be, and just not shooting your shot too quickly and, you know, divulging too much information, and keeping a bit of a sense of mystery about it until you can drive those people, you know, into a launch.
And you mentioned the sort of longer lead times. Is that having an impact on projects getting out of the ground and getting finished?
Look, again, it's different for every project, because it all depends on the financing structure of that development. So for instance, with the Moonee Valley project, the development's actually a joint venture with Host Plus Superannuation. So with that, we haven't been reliant on selling a particular amount before we can actually commence construction, which has been fantastic and obviously mitigates any risk of, you know, is this going to happen or not? But it is just essentially, I haven't seen, you know, two developments with the same financing structure, so it's different for every project.
Yeah, and you mentioned the market seems to be turning, well, it certainly has turned here in Melbourne to the end of 2019.
Yeah.
Just in terms of percentages, can you give us an idea of improvement from, say, this time last year?
So I can tell you in the last quarter in Melbourne, we've had a 6.4% increase in median house price. So I would say that right now we're in a strong market. I think we're not in a hot market, but definitely a strong market. The foundation for further price increases is definitely there as well, with you know, population growth being one of the major driving factors, for obviously because that's increase of demand for housing. And then also what I think a lot of people don't realise is that we're going to have a shortage of properties moving forward, because the dwellings coming to market, the new construction has slowed down so much, primarily because of a lot of new legislation and regulation from the government, which, I think in the hot market, they were trying to put the brakes on that a little bit, and then it's almost halted construction. So in the city this year, there was only one new project released. So, I mean, you look around the city now, you'll see a lot of cranes, but in 2019, with one project being released, when that's actually starts construction, the others have settled, you'll see one crane. In a couple of years' time, there'll only be one crane building that one building. So, and when we've got hundreds of thousands of people moving to this city, and the way people are living is so different and is constantly evolving now, where people don't want to live far away from the city, or they're wanting to live in a city fringe, and they don't necessarily need a house and forego the house to live in a location that offers a lot more than some of these housing estates or what have you, far from the city do. So there will be huge demand, and we've seen that also with rental prices as well. Rental prices are huge now in so many areas in the inner city of Melbourne. It's actually cheaper to purchase a property if you've got a deposit than it is to rent. Also with money being so cheap at the moment.
Yeah, those are some of the messages that we've been putting out to our prospects as well. But there still seems to be some hesitation in the market about committing, certainly to off the plan where I'm marketing and selling.
Yeah.
And it just seems pretty obvious that the prices are going to go up because we've got all these people moving in and there's limited supply coming through. You sort of don't have to be a genius to figure out that's going to have an impact on prices at some point.
Yeah, precisely. But I mean, I just think some people will always just be a little bit too gun shy, to take the plunge. Definitely when the market had bottomed out, probably at the very beginning of this year, sort of the end of last year, I was speaking to people and they're going, the market's going to go down another 30%. We're going to wait, another 6 months, blah, blah, blah. Can't say anything to them. That's fine. Great. I'll speak to you in 6 months' time then. Touching base with them. Obviously the market's recovered. It's picked up and they're going, why didn't we buy then? There was so many good deals to be had, but everyone was so scared of what could happen. I think the risk of not being in the property market in Melbourne, it is much greater than the risk of being in it.
Yeah, I think these ideas of 20 and 30% falls across the board were somewhat fanciful. So
I think, if
that happens, there's something massive going on in the economy which is not going to be good for everybody.
Exactly.
So, and I think people forget that. It's like if that market's dropping by 20 to 30%, there's something very, very bad going on with the broader economy, and it's going to affect absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
You won't be able to buy property because you won't have a job.
Exactly. But I think, we've seen corrections in areas that probably were overpriced to begin with, but now we've definitely seen it all sort of level out and become a lot more stable in the pricing. So I think we're pretty much true to price at the moment, in terms of market value. So I think now is obviously a good time to buy, particularly if you're looking at off the plan, because you can secure something at today's price that isn't going to settle for a couple of years. So you can never guarantee anything. No one has a crystal ball, but with the way that the market's moving at the moment, you could look at having some type of upswing by the time that you settle.
Yeah, and I think that's become believable for people now, whereas last year they probably just
Yeah.
refused to believe that, even though you knew the market would turn at some stage, but it's just a hard sell. Whereas now you can say that and people nod their heads and go, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So that makes things easier. What should developers be thinking about when they're marketing their projects? What makes it easier for you as a marketer and salesperson?
I think just getting your salespeople involved in the design process. So I know that John and I have just been working on shuffling around floor plans and sort of redesigning. The architects probably hate us for doing this, but we just know that when we eventually launch that project, you know, this is probably looking the middle of next year and we're already sort of involved, it's going to be a much more saleable product, because at the end of the day, the architects and the designers, they're not the consumer. No one knows the buyer better than us, the salespeople, because we're out there every day talking to buyers, and you know, getting an idea of exactly what it is that they want. So if we can translate that knowledge into a future project, it just cuts out one more hurdle of us trying to overcome when we're actually presenting the finalised product.
I wanted to ask, how many phone calls do you reckon you make in a year or in a week?
So my math isn't that great. That definitely wasn't a strong suit. I could probably tell you per day.
Yeah, per day.
It would be somewhere between sort of 30 and 50 a day. That might even be a bit light on, but definitely have got my money's worth out of my AirPods. They're typically attached to my head most hours of the day.
I'm sure there's probably real estate agents out there that their earpods are actually starting to fuse with their earlobes.
Yeah, no, I sometimes need to remember to take them out when I'm actually going to an appointment.
You feel naked when you take them off
now.
And is there anything else that developers can do to make your job a bit easier?
Have a good budget for advertising. I mean, obviously, again...
Well, what should they think about in terms of having a good... I mean, what does a good budget mean?
Exactly. Well, it all comes back to what we're selling. So, like I met with the developer recently who was doing quite a small project of, I think, 15 apartments in sort of the middle ring suburbs. And our advice to them was not to spend money on doing a display suite, but rather they had completed a building a couple of streets over about a year ago, said invest your money in refitting one of the apartments from your other building and use that as your display. So that's going to be a lot more cost effective for them, and that will allow us to reallocate that money into doing, you know, a really good quality brochure or getting really good quality renders made, to make everything just seem a little bit more premium and thought out, rather than doing a half-assed display in a shipping container on the site with crap renders and a cheap feeling brochure. So it's just coming back to tailoring our approach and our strategy for every single project that we're working on, and constantly being fluid and proactive throughout the campaign. So we would never just say, look, this is what we're going to do, and then sort of never check in or never revise. We would look at what we're doing weekly and see what's working, what's not working, what can we do differently, to maximise our results for our clients.
Got any examples of stuff that hasn't worked? Where you've pivoted and gone, yeah, let's move away from that, or that obviously just didn't work?
I don't know. Probably we've definitely experienced things that haven't worked, but typically that's been more so when the client hasn't taken our advice or has implemented a version of what we have put forward, you know, and then come back to us and go, well, it's not selling, and we have to explain to them, we actually suggested that we do this and you've only done 10% of what we suggested, you know. Yeah, I don't think I've ever worked on a project where we've suggested something and it hasn't paid off. Which probably sounds a bit ridiculous, but but that's the truth. Yeah.
Actually, I think I interrupted you before in terms of what kind of percentage increase you've seen in terms of inquiry levels from last year to this year.
Definitely, there's been an increase in inquiry. It wasn't like we stopped getting inquiries. Just the quality of the inquiry has got a lot better this year rather than last. So there's always people out there who are interested in property and interested in what the market is doing and interested in the next new thing that's coming out, and will put through their inquiries and they're just gathering information. So we saw a lot more of that last year, and a lot more people that, you know, we're trying to get a deal, and rightly so. Whereas this year we're seeing a lot more qualified buyers who, you know, are realistic in regards to their expectations of what's feasible.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Saves you a bit of time.
Yes.
So if I came to you and said, Campbell, I want to take my developing business to the next level from a marketing and sales perspective, what do you advise me to do?
It depends what, as in just your business and your brand, or the type of product that you're developing, or what do you want to take to the next level?
Yeah, good question.
So I think for us, that's an example of, I don't know, one thing that I think you just need to do all the time is just always ask why and find out people's motivations for anything. And, you know, even if you have an idea of what somebody, you know, what their end result should be, I think it's better to get them to spell out the process, because it may be something completely different to, you know, to what I had in mind. Like when you asked me that question, I was thinking just brand.
Both, let's say both.
Yeah.
I want to improve my brand and improve my product.
So we would probably put you in touch with, you know, a graphic marketer to look at your brand and look at how you could improve that. So whether that be, you know, redesigning, you know, all of your collateral, so website, you know, business cards, all of that type of hard copy collateral and online presence. You would really need to sort of have an idea or form an idea of what you're wanting to project. So whether you're wanting to rebrand yourself into, you know, an environmentally sustainable developer. So we'd look at ways that you could do that. You know, put you in touch with a PR agency to see what they could value add in terms of getting that message across that now you're doing environmentally sustainable projects. And then in terms of your actual developments, you know, connect you with an architect who's renowned for doing environmentally sustainable projects, get you in touch with an ESD consultant who can assist with improving the environmental attributes of your projects. So it would really just be about connecting you with the right people and just establishing those relationships so that when we did have you know, a product to sell. All of that is sort of in place and working in the background, while we're in the foreground actually trying to sell the product.
That's good. I like it.
Good.
I'll ask you for who those people are after the interview.
But a very long address book. I'm worried that my iCloud storage is going to give way soon with the amount of contacts I have in my phone.
Storage is cheap these days, Campbell. What are you seeing? Any emerging emerging requests or trends from buyers? You mentioned environmentally sustainable building.
Yeah.
Is that
that's definitely
something that's coming through?
Definitely is. That's very much prevalent in particular areas in Melbourne. So I launched last year a townhouse project in Brunswick, where I had 58 townhouses there to sell. I've only got 2 left now, and that sold really well. One of the reasons that sold really well is because it had a 7-star energy rating across the board, and for the clients looking in Brunswick, that was something that was really important to them. Dare I say, if I launched that project in South Yarra, the 7-star energy rating may not carry as much weight with the demographic purchasing in that area.
So is Brunswick, are they part of the lentil belt over there on the north side of Melbourne?
I had one client refer to it as the People's Republic as Brunswick, who actually secured in that development. You know, whereas we had a very successful project launched this year, and that we've more or less sold out now, in Fitzroy, and that was heavily design focused. So the fixtures and finishes in that were absolutely stunning. It was a boutique development. All of the floor plans were oversized. So our 2 bedrooms averaged 130 square metres. So that felt like a very premium design focused product that had a bit of a very cool point of difference. It wasn't the ostentatious sort of over the top, you know, white shiny marble everywhere. It was quality materials, very pared back, and real understated quality and luxury, which resonated again with the client that was purchasing that type of product in that area.
And I imagine as a selling agent, that also gets you excited and fired up when you've got a product like that you can bring to market.
Absolutely, yeah, because I mean, as I mentioned before, I've got a huge appreciation for what architects and interior designers do, definitely given my background, and it allows me, I think, you know, I can try and do my best sales pitch ever, but if I don't believe in what I'm selling, or if I'm not truly excited about the product that I have, people will know I'm not that good of an actor. It definitely comes across, so it's fantastic that we can essentially pick and choose the projects that we represent at 360, and we're not just having sort of to take on any project that's offered to us to keep the lights on, you know. So another one that we were really excited to represent this year was St. Moritz in St Kilda. So that was probably one of the first display suites I've ever walked into, and has made me immediately want to buy. So, and that was all just through sort of that emotion was brought through from the design of the display suite and the fixtures and finishes and the overall presentation, which we curated.
I think that's a Gurner project, isn't it?
Yes.
Down there? Yeah. Are they tearing that building down?
It's down.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the Novotel.
Yeah. Oh, they've pulled it down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to watch that one go up.
Mm.
All right, Campbell, if you go back in time and talk to a younger Campbell, when would it be, and what would you say to him?
Now it's a good question. I don't know, the only thing that really comes to mind would be, and I don't know if I've got a particular age range on this because I'd probably still need to remind myself to this day, that just need to remind myself that not everything has to be perfect all the time. So I'm a very details-oriented person, a little bit of a control freak at times, very much a perfectionist because I like everything to be perfect in a particular way. But life, unfortunately, is not like that. So just to keep stress levels down, and I think it's good to remind yourself that not everything has to be perfect to get the same result, and just sort of to roll with the punches a little bit more.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Probably to schedule time for yourself the same way you would schedule a work appointment. So given the nature of what we do, and again with projects, we're probably working a lot longer hours than traditional real estate agents. So typically I'm working 7 days a week. So to schedule in time, like this year, I made a resolution to invest time and money into my health and fitness. So started doing F45 5 days a week, and I just scheduled it in like it was a work appointment, and it was a non-negotiable, and that's really improved my energy levels, quality of life, whereas last year loved to work out, but I just never found the time, always prioritised work over things for myself. And burnout is a very real thing in what we do. So just making sure that you are looking after yourself.
It's definitely paid off.
Keeping
your buttons are about to pop off your shirt.
Just keeping your body, the machine, very well oiled, and making sure you're getting enough sleep and you're eating right and all of that. Means that you're going to have a lot more longevity, I think, in this type of job.
And what's the absolute worst thing someone could get you to do for an hour?
Pretty much anything where I'd have to be confined to my desk. So any type of sort of reporting or anything where I would have to sit down at my desk for more than 30 minutes, I'm not good with. I'd much rather be on the phone talking to somebody, walking around the office, or meeting with somebody in a display suite, or having coffee with a developer, or anything like that. I'm definitely not an office 9 to 5 type of person. That would drive me a bit insane, I think.
I'd be curious to hear about some of your tips, speaking of being on the phone, around dealing with objections.
Mm-hmm.
What are you got sort of 2 or 3 ways that you overcome objections with people on the phone, or rejection?
Well, I think with rejection, that's, it's inevitable. There's always going to be, some percentage of people who just don't want to speak with you, and you just need to realise that's fine and sort of water off a duck's back, move on. Someone else will want to speak to you. In terms of overcoming objections, there's a whole variety of different methods to do that, depending on what the objection is. Sometimes it's with people who've got a lot of objections, sometimes it's just a matter of sort of just parking the conversation where it is and saying, look, I think it seems as though you've got a lot of questions, and I'm here to help you, and I'd love to be able to explain everything in detail. Would you have time for us to catch up for a 10-minute coffee? I'm happy to come to you in your office, because it sounds like you're really time poor, because I think we'll achieve a lot more, face to face rather than over the phone. Or just trying to work around whatever it is just to build more of that rapport and that relationship, because at the end of the day, particularly with off the plan, it's all about trust. So, as the salesperson, you need to have incredible product knowledge because you're selling something that's not tangible.
But that's something that always surprises me, even about agents that are selling existing stock, how little they actually know about this $1 million product.
But with traditional real estate, you can get away with that because it's the client's able to walk into the property and form that emotional bond, which you can't necessarily do with off the plan. Yes, a lot of the time we've got fantastic display suites, but I've sold multi-million-dollar townhouses off a piece of paper with a floor plan, and that's it. And it was getting that deal across the line was reliant on the client trusting me implicitly that the property would be, when it was built, exactly how I articulated it to them and I described them, and that sort of emotional feeling and story that I have to cultivate through words for them, because they can't actually touch or feel or see anything.
Yeah, that's the big challenge, isn't it? You're selling a dream, really, when you're selling off the plan. If you could sit down for lunch with any person, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
The first person that comes to mind would probably be Anna Wintour. So the editor of Vogue magazine. She has obviously been incredibly successful in her career, and has developed a bit of a reputation for being a bit cut and dry, or a bit icy, but seems to be able to still have a bit of a sense of humour about what she does, not only in her professional world but also philanthropically as well, with a lot of charity work. And I just think she'd be incredibly interesting to sit down and have a chat with.
Doesn't she come to the tennis every year?
She does.
Maybe you need to get on the Twitters.
Well, last year when the Australian Open was on, I saw her walking through. She was obviously staying at Crown Towers when I was going out for lunch one day. But yeah, I didn't dare approach.
She might have had an icicle ready.
Yeah.
All right, Campbell, is there anything else you'd like to share or ask of the listeners of the show before we wrap up?
No. Thank you so much for having me on. Look, if anyone is interested in following along with my sort of day-to-day life in property, you can find me on Instagram at Campbell Royston, CampbellRoyston. I feel like that's a fantastic way to share, what's coming up in terms of property, what's going on at the moment, and it's a great way to keep contact with my purchasers as well. So definitely check me out on Instagram.
Yes, well, actually, now that you've quickly touched on keeping in touch with buyers, is that's something you obviously do post-sale and through construction and
absolutely
keeping in touch? Yeah,
because again, it's just all about that relationship. So, I've got clients that I've sold to and they've, become friends through that process. So it's when you're selling something off the plan, you're essentially, the way I see it, is that as the sales agent, you're making commitment to that purchaser that you're going to see them throughout the whole process. And I always say to my clients, when this is built, I will be in that property with you doing the pre-settlement inspection, and you'll have a smile on your face because it will be exactly how I've described here. And thus far, with the hundreds and hundreds of pre-settlements I've done, I've more or less always had positive experiences with my clients.
And why do you think that is?
I think it's just because I represent the property as it will be. So I'm always very truthful, I'm always very upfront, and will always explain to the nth degree exactly what they should expect when the property is built. So there's no surprises come settlement. They're not walking into a property and there's a huge column in the middle of the room, which, I didn't tell them about. Because at the end of the day, I still want to be doing this for, a few more years. I'm not quite ready to retire yet. So I've got to protect my reputation as well. And I think the only way that you can do that is by being extremely transparent and truthful, in all of your dealings.
Because what are the kind of things that can get buyers or agents tripped up when they're selling off the plan? I don't know whether they're necessarily misrepresenting something, or what are the kind of things that can come back to bite people?
Look, something I've seen with other agencies, they may not blatantly explain, if a balcony is going to have 1.7 metre high privacy screening or whatever it may be, and they're relying on the purchaser to read the architectural elevations which are in the contract. Whereas for me, I think that's very important to explain what it will look like, point it out, explain what the materiality will be and how it will impact, on the property. And then also try and work with taking a step before that, try and work with the developer or the architect prior to that to get the most attractive outcome that will still meet planning regulations. I'm just settling at the moment a project in Hampton that I sold a couple of years ago, and that's something that we did. The privacy screening, because it's in a residential street, it was 18 apartments. The privacy screening on level 1 and 2, they needed 1.7 metre high privacy screening on balconies, which is fine, but what the architect had specified was frosted glass just all the way around, so it would almost be like a little frosted glass box. And we have found that once it's built, a perforated metal or a slatted screen is a lot more attractive, and something that provides a view through and is not just an opaque glass is a lot better design outcome. So we were able to get it re-specified before we brought that project to market, and we've done the pre-settlements there and have had no issues because everyone knew exactly what it was going to be.
So there's a bit of a holding of the breath when you do your pre-settlements?
Not really, no, because again, it's just I've been very forthcoming to begin with. So if something's gonna, take my breath away, it's generally because it's wrong, So which have had happen where if we did a particular customization or an upgrade and it wasn't done by the builders quite right, that's what the pre-settlement inspection is there for, so that we can get that addressed and rectified prior to settling. So it is exactly how you wanted it to be, when you're getting the keys and you're moving in.
No surprises, hopefully.
Yes.
All right, Campbell, it's been so awesome sitting down talking to you about selling and project marketing. It's been really awesome. If people want to find out more about 360 Property Group, what's the company's website?
Yeah, so just 360propertygroup.com.au. Also, 360's got a great Instagram as well, so that's just at 360 Property Group, and myself at Campbell Royston. Awesome. Well, thanks again for talking with us. Really grateful to you, and happy selling. Great. Thanks, Justin. See you later. Bye. Okay, there you go. Another great conversation about how to sell property off the plan. I hope you enjoyed it. I always like talking about selling property, as there's no silver bullet to successfully marketing your project.
and it takes a combination of elements all working together to get a great result. So here are the things I took out of my conversation with Campbell. 1. Ask what the purpose is behind your intention. Understanding why you're doing something provides greater clarity to your intention. For example, why do you want to get bigger? What is it you want to change about your business? Is it the quality or style of your projects? Is it your brand? But why? Why are you wanting to change? If you understand that reason, you can more clearly go after results. 2. Understand who your buyers are. Segmenting to succeed, that was a message I again got from speaking with Campbell. Have you given deep consideration to who you are selling to? Do you understand their needs, desires, wants? What information and journey will they go on before making a buying decision? If you're ready to take buyers along that path, then you set yourself up for the best opportunity to convert inquiry to sales. 3. Tailor a marketing campaign for each project. As Campbell mentioned, they tailor a specific campaign for each project. There's no spray and pray approach where you just tick boxes and hope you get leads. I like to work closely with the selling agent on the marketing of my projects to ensure we are targeting the right group of people with the right message through the best channels. Just spending money on a shopping list of collateral and tactics is not the wisest approach. Alright, if you enjoyed that chat with Campbell, I suggest you go back to the chat I had with Campbell's colleague and director John Meagher in episode 60, where we discussed approaches to a marketing strategy, the idea of being parachuted into an area without any digital backup and seeing how you would make some sales, and his thoughts on why you should segment your audience, including this insight.
Segmenting to succeed. So cutting up different parts of a project to sell it and targeting different market segments. So, if you have a project of 100 units, it doesn't mean it's the same buyer and the same demographic that's going to buy all 100. So quite often you'll have different strategies for different projects.
There's a lot of great stuff in that chat, so be sure to take a listen. Remember to contact me if you are interested in learning how to develop property safely and profitably. Email Justin at propertydeveloperpodcast.com for some info. Don't forget to catch me on Insta and Facebook for all my latest project pics and videos, industry news, and other fun tidbits. You can also post a comment on iTunes if you're enjoying the show, and of course, all the past episodes of the show can be found at www.propertydeveloperpodcast.com. So until next time, may your next campaign be targeted and successful.
You've been listening to the Property Developer Podcast. Tune in next time for more tips, ideas and inspiration to take your developing to the next level. For more developing love, make sure to visit propertydeveloperpodcast.com.